Greetings from Southern Yankee Homestead. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. Well, today, as the title says, we're digging into the Liberty today. Give you a little background. This is a 2005 KJ, not a KK, KJ, with the common rail diesel. If you didn't know that these came factory with a diesel, then, well, it comes factory with a diesel. As far as numbers go, this particular model Jeep, this KJ, Kia Jeep as I call it, there was 960,000 of them built between 2001 and 2007 for the US market. 2005 and 2006 they had a different engine option than the standard i4 or V6. They had the 2.8 liter common rail diesel. There's no specific numbers on that. I'm sorry, I'm getting something in my eye. There's no specific numbers that I was able to find on how many actually came in this particular model. I've heard rumors of upwards to 40,000, but most of the websites that I go to and doing the research seem to come to the consensus that there was about 12 to 16,000 of these made in the 2 years, most of which were 2005. This is a little bit different than your standard KJ, and one of the reasons I'm doing this video is because going through the videos of this particular repair, half of them have the engines out and the rest of them is just like, oh, this is what you do. So the problem, the steering rack, the bushings are worn out. As you saw, I dropped a couple boxes on the table earlier, and this is what's in those boxes, a bushing. Now the reason we're changing this out, well, one, it's content for YouTube. Sorry, gotta do something, might as well record it, right? The second thing is, when I priced getting this done, this bushing, this Moog bushing, cost me 20 bucks. I got two of them because I figure if one's gone bad, the other one's about to go bad. Well, with that, to get this changed out, I was quoted anywhere between $650 and $1,100 for these two $20 bushings to be changed out. It takes on average 7 hours, according to the book, to change out this one bushing. I don't imagine the second one's much more difficult. So I'm going to go through this step by step because, again, I didn't see any really good videos on YouTube on changing this and what it takes. And there's none on this diesel, which makes it even more interesting. I'll show you why. This is the common rail diesel that comes in the Liberty. Now what makes this partially so difficult is the fact that there is literally no space in here. You have your transmission cooler, your intercooler, and your radiator, as well as your AC condenser and other stuff in here. So all of this is your cooling. You have very short mechanical fan. You have an electric fan as well, so it is a push-pull system. It will push air through as well as pull air through. 4-cylinder diesel, and it's going to be dang, you probably won't be able to see it, but right down there, if editor Paul sees that, down past the fan, right there, that bolt that's all the way down, that is the steering rack bolt. There's another one right there between those two lines you see going through the middle. There's actually a bolt under there. Those are the bolts we got to get to. The problem is, obviously, you're not getting to it from the top. Bigger problem is you can barely get to it from the bottom. I mean, there is a skid plate here. We'll take that off, but even without that, this is a cooling line. This is your sway bar. This is, I think, an oil cooler line or transmission line. And then when you pull this out, because this is a four-wheel drive, you have a bracket here and a bracket here that is actually your differential carrier. Beyond all that, you also have to disconnect the hydraulic lines that go to the steering box, as well as the actual pinion itself that is buried under everything else. or pinion, U-joint for the steering column. Yeah, and then we're probably going to have to jack this up at some point and take the tires off. One thing, if you noticed, I got the front all pulled apart. I did that because it makes it easier to film if I don't have that big plastic bumper in the way. You probably don't have to do that, but I did. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with pulling the the skid plate, and then we'll see what kind of a mess we can really get into. And then this is where the fun begins. So, looking up at the bottom of the engine right now, this is some kind of an oil line. Then this is the actual steering rack right here. Let's see if I can get a better shot of it. Right here is a steering rack that goes all the way across at the front of the engine. Looks like I got some kind of a small leak too. And if you notice, this is the front cross member for the differential. This is another cross member for the differential. And our steering's above it. You got one nut here with a bolt up above that is right in here. I got my finger on it, although you probably can't see it very well, if at all. Lord knows I can't see it either. And that's ultimately why I took the front bumper off, was to get a little bit more space in here so that I could see what I was doing. I'm hoping I can just put an impact on this nut and spin this off. If I do that, it'll be so much easier. I might actually be able to pull the bolt up through from the engine compartment. But with having this open here where I can get to it, I can put a wrench on this end, and yep, I can put one on this end as well. So before we do the other one, let's go ahead and get that on there. Let's see how that does. Oh, that's off. There. Get those two out. Alright, before the battery dies also. Skid plate, 15 millimeter. Steering rack bolts are 15/16. All right. Oh. Ooh. After much cussing, I was able to get both of the bushings out and the new bushings in. Holy crap. So I ended up using a pry bar and moving the rack and pinion back and forth, up and down, all around, a little bit of grease to finally get it in. Ended up also having to take off both of the steering knuckles, or disconnect the steering knuckles. So now it's a matter of going through and putting all these screws back in. What I'm probably going to do for safety reasons, I'm going to get the bolts in. Oops, sorry. I'm going to get the bolts in. Get these bolts in through the cross member to hold the rack in, and then I'm going to reconnect it and put the tires back on and take it off jack stands, because I really don't like working on it like this. Okay. All right, we're back. It's a day or two later, actually 2 days later. I finished up about 6 o'clock on Friday, This is Sunday afternoon. Well, I didn't finish up. I was finished. I was getting frustrated on getting a semi-round peg in a semi-square hole. Steering linkage going from the steering wheel into the steering box. It's got a quarter round on it by the looks, and it doesn't line up exactly right after moving the steering pinion and rack and pinion all around. So theoretically you would be able to turn the tire and make it work, or turn the wheel. But if you notice, I've got the steering wheel braced with a seat belt right now so that it doesn't turn. I did that intentionally. If you don't know, there is a clock spring inside the steering wheel. And what a clock spring is, it's basically 2 plates, but instead of having a direct point of contact, they have a spring that goes around it. So as you turn the wheel, the spring will stretch or contract and still maintain electrical continuity in there. The old style, I know, unlike my Toyota, it just had the horn, so all they had was a round plate with a little plug, and that plug would occasionally wear out, and you can still buy those at Toyota. But this uses a clock spring. The downside to that is, if you don't support the steering wheel and keep it from turning, you can literally turn that and break it, in which case you got to disassemble most of the steering wheel to get to that little clock spring plate. Bad, very bad. So with Hun's help, we're able to turn the steering wheel just enough that I could get the sector shaft attached. So after that, I went in through here and attached the burning the battery down, and attached the bolt that holds the steering shaft together. Now I need to bolt the sway bar up, and I'll be ready to go ahead and torque down the cross member itself. Although I'm going to torque the cross member down first before I do that. The reason I'm going to torque the cross member down is because once I put the sway bar back in place, I may not have the space to do the rest of it. So I guess the last thing to do, well, would be to bolt the skid plate on. But before I do that, I'm going to fire the Jeep up and make sure I didn't break anything else in the process. Alright, I'm going to fire it up. Let me know if it starts puking any fluid. I guess I won't know more until I get her out on the highway and see how she actually handles. With that, I'm also going to be taking it in tomorrow and getting a front end alignment, because I pretty much messed with everything in the steering. So take it in, get an alignment, make sure we're still good. Other than that, I'm going to go ahead and put the fascia back on this, bolt the skid plate up, and take it out for a test drive. So hope you enjoyed this video.